Aloha, everybody. I'll call this meeting of the Neighborhood Commission Neighborhood Plan Committee meeting. And at this time, the first thing we have on our agenda is our public concerns. Are there any public concerns that are not related to any item we have on the agenda? Hearing none, we can move on to our approval of minutes. Yes, Greg, please go ahead. Just under the wire. Greg?
Sorry, yeah, I just joined and I just to clarify, hold on if I'll do the video masking here. I apologize for my late entry. I just received a phone call, so I was a little bit distracted and late on. I wasn't sure what you said on the agenda, so I just wanted to make sure if it was anything that's not on the agenda that you to bring up to speak on.
Yes, that's correct. So public concerns. Yes.
Okay.
So if it could in theory be something, it can be something about the plan, but not just related to the sections that we're covering this evening. And if you just tell me what it is, if it conflicts, I'll let you know.
Yeah,
So go
I think
ahead.
we've discussed before some general issues, so I'll just let the meeting go, and then if there's an issue on a specific item on the plan that you're going to talk on, we'll bring it up later. So thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any other public concerns? Hearing none, we'll move on to our approval of committee minutes. Are there any amendments any of the committee members wish to offer at this time? Hearing none, we'll adopt the minutes as distributed. So right now we can go to our new business, which is first on the agenda, is our consideration of board outreach. I did put together a little PowerPoint. Do you have that up? Yes. And maybe we run through that if anyone has any suggestions or wants to offer any comments. This is just a rough draft, so please let me know. It'll be up in just a moment.
Can you make it just a little bit larger?
Okay, is that good now?
Perfect.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
That'll work.
So, I don't imagine that we're going to do like a narrative, like with a voiceover or anything, unless someone wants to do that. So I assume we can just send it out. So if everybody can read it very quickly. So please read it on your own if you have any questions, unless you want me to. Okay, maybe it'll be easier if I just read it really quickly. Okay, Neighborhood Commission announces the commencement of a comprehensive review of the neighborhood plan. Next slide. So the commission's neighborhood plan, it should be committee, it was obviously rough draft, began organizing and meeting in March of this year to undergo a comprehensive review. Well, kind of repeating ourselves a little bit, review of the neighborhood plan. Next slide. The committee seeks input from the boards and the public as we go through this process. Particularly of note to the boards may be, powers, duties, and functions of the neighborhood boards and geographical boundaries of each board. The committee has begun reviewing portions of the plan related to the commission. The intent is to leave the board-related provisions until the boards and the public have a significant opportunity to provide testimony. To this date, the Neighborhood Plan Committee has adopted a reorganization for the neighborhood plan, which will entail reordering the sections and renumbering the individual provisions, I misspelled, to better suit the boards. For example, as the most important part of the plan, provisions regarding the operation of the boards will come first. Yeah, rough draft. As of this date, the Neighborhood Plan Committee has oh my gosh, I think this is, sorry, this is a repeat, rough draft, has adopted a reorganization of the plan, which will entail reorganization. Okay, I've got to probably take out one of those slides or do something. So next slide, please. So all can follow the activity of the committee by reviewing the following. The commission's website, where the meeting agenda and agendas and minutes may be found at the website. The commission's YouTube page holding a video record of our meetings to date. and there it is. And then something I haven't talked about yet, but we put together like a little unofficial website. So it says, and also an unofficial website set up by the committee to provide an organized record of documents in our proceedings. And if everybody wants to take a look, but this is just to put a little bit more organization, because when you go to like a Google Drive, it's just everything is sort of thrown in there. Unless you have some knowledge or really want to sort through things, I think it might be overwhelming if we put all our documents in there without organizing. So that's why I think it's a good idea. And anyway, go on, please. And then the public may also sign up to receive mailings of the committee by contacting the NCO. And then please provide input, whether as an individual or acting collectively as a board by submitting testimony. And my thought was they could do resolutions and that would hold a little bit more weight as opposed to just doing it as individuals. And then testimony forms, which we have put together, may be found by emailing the NCO or on the committee's website, as we talked about. And then I'm just generally, for any questions, please reach out to the NCO, executive secretary, or a member of the committee, and they just list everybody. So anyway, that's really about it. Obviously, it's a little rough around the edges, needs a little work, but that's what I thought we could send out to the committee, to the board, say it's a very short announcement, but I would hope each board would take it to heart and start thinking about whatever they need to submit or whatever opinions they might have on the process. So there it is. Do you have any comments?
Should I go to share the website real quick, or?
Yeah, if you want to. That one slide.
Yeah, you know,
But yeah,
otherwise.
thanks you. Okay, so this is,
One second.
okay, never mind. So I'm a little overexcited.
It's a good plan, Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we can see it.
Okay, so this is
Question?
the website. Oh,
I'm-
yeah, go ahead. I can't see who it is, but go ahead.
Uh,
Or Stephen.
Bob Finley. What
yes.
kind of time frame are you looking at before you send something to a board for comment? How many months are you going to give the board to respond to that? Or would you rather just go to individual board members?
I think the thinking is right now to send this out to all the board chairs so they can actually put it on the agenda and present it to their board. That's the thought. I know you've been in the process before. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I would think at least 3 to 4 months. Because you
Well,
have boards that meet on the first day of the month and on the last day of the month. And so by the time that you publish something, get inputs from the individual board members to the chair and get them out, it takes several months.
well, I think probably we should have done this a little earlier. So, but unfortunately, we didn't do the outreach. It's sort of like we started the process and it just kind of the ball started rolling. So what we've done is we're just sort of reviewing the provisions that would probably be the least applicable to each of the boards, as I mentioned. And so I think there should be, I would think we're not going to conclude the commission material until the new year. I expect we probably won't meet in December. So that will be out. We'll probably only have 2 more meetings. And what I would hope is we would get through the commission provisions. So with that stated, there will be plenty of time for those portions of the plan to be reviewed by the individual boards. Now, if the boards say they are passionate or they have an idea or they want to go back to the provisions that we've already reviewed, then, I mean, unless the committee objects, I would certainly, I think that would be appropriate. So if we do say miss something, like they missed out, I don't want to say, oh, it's too late. So I think the committee would be okay, since we're just doing the outreach now, to take that sort of course of action. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. So, thank you.
Patrick,
Yeah, Stephen, go ahead, please.
don't want to give you more work, but what would really be great if you could, when you get the PowerPoint to the point of getting ready to present it, is actually to attend the board meetings, have the chairs put on the agenda, and you just share it remotely. Because that's how they respond. We have such good response. People come in with PowerPoint presentations or interactive presentations because it really helps bring in the people, the board, and the community. So if you could do it, I don't know that's a lot of board meetings, but or you
Yeah.
could assign, or people from the committee here could help you with it, whatever way you want to assign the responsibilities.
Okay, Lloyd, you want to comment?
Yeah, I'm gonna save you from 33 meetings, so. I think if we can get the PowerPoint down in a final form, I think the NA could just go through it at the meeting. It's not the point of the presentation is not to discuss back and forth and get details done, but it's just to let them know this is what's going on. And this is how they can participate.
If you'd be willing to have the NAs actually do, make this presentation, like I said, it wouldn't take but a few minutes or 4 or 5 minutes. And if people have questions, they can just say, you need to contact
Right.
the office or the committee or something like that. So this is just to get out the information. And yeah, I think that's a much more practical. Stephen, I hear you. I think that in a more perfect world, that would be the better way to do it. But if you go down the meetings, like on one evening, Tuesday, for instance, there are a lot of meetings. So it's just entirely impractical, I think, to try to reach a lot of boards. Anyway, hey, Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, Chair, one of the things I want to suggest is actually empower the neighborhood boards to get more involved with their boards. Right now, it's really, most of the neighborhood boards are really pressed for time trying to get through their agenda. And this right now takes some time to really go through. I would suggest the neighborhood boards, what they could do is set up a separate committee and then work that as their own and then present it at their board meeting, and then bring it to you.
I don't know. I think that would be up to the individual.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, and it's only like
I mean,
a
how much
3 or
time you
4
need to get?
minute. It's not, I would think less than 5 minutes, this whole thing.
Yeah.
I think they make it in a few minutes.
The presentation is fast.
Yeah.
It's everyone who wants to ask questions right there at that moment, that would be the longest thing. But as he was saying, let's just defer it to.
Yeah, I would say, I would advocate for the NAs to just say, this is all the information I have. Contact the commission, the executive secretary, the NCO, whatever it is. Because it's not, the point of this is just for informational purposes, to let people know what we're doing and to then be able to participate. So I guess that would be maybe the one thing is just, make sure that they have information of, and it's on there, but just make sure that they have information of how to get more information at that point. But rather than answering questions.
Yeah.
Anyway,
The PowerPoint could also be added to every board's Google Drive.
Yeah.
So even if they miss the meeting, they see it in the recording, or they can look at the document themselves and see the website, the email, all that.
So,
You want to talk about the website?
just this website. So it has links to, has some documentation. So what the plan is, we have the present proposal is always going to be at the first. So each month it'll be at the top. So in October, you'll have October's proposal or past, whatever has passed. I should call it something different than just proposal. That makes it a little ambiguous. But anyway, have all the documentation there each and every month so that people could see sort of what we're doing. One thing that I haven't done thus far is is actually write down a change log. And I will do that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that could take a lot of work, but I do think we should have it, rather than just say, hey, here's a new plan. We should have some written documentation of all the changes that we actually adopted. And so up at the top, if you scroll down just a tad, it just, it just gives you, links to other things, like it'll have the testimony for the form, which is called the suggested submission form and neighborhood plan process. And that's just when it gets to the actual commission, the two public meetings and that sort of thing, just explains that. And then it has a link to the Sunshine Law and City Charter if you want to see it, the current plan. And then on the revisions, we'll have the various revisions as we go. And then some links, it's just a link to the, I know it goes off, but I have to fix that. But links to the neighborhood commission and a few other pertinent items. So anyway, that's all it really has. But I think that it's just a little easier than the Google Drive because it will present
It is.
each document. Yeah, because I like to label things very descriptively, but unless you kind of know what someone's thinking, it's very cryptic. So, and I can completely understand that. And so I think something like this will be much more helpful. And, really the point is to be very open in the process too. So anyway, are there any other comments? Hearing none, we can move. Yeah, Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. I've just downloaded the official review submission form from the new website that you're showing there. And I'm not sure how you anticipate using it or if you're expecting or hoping that folks will fill out
Okay,
one form for each potential change.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just so I can break in, that's actually just a draft. The NCO has edited that and I haven't put that one up yet. So it's still kind of a work in progress, the one that you see. Just be knowledgeable that the NCO, I think, emailed me a revised copy, which I haven't uploaded yet. So with that in mind, they will have where you can put, additional pages.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. I'm sorry, with that, Kevin, did you want to add anything else?
Yes, thank you. I just again wonder, for folks who have or are faciles, you and I have discussed offline about using Word documents and especially considering what I submitted for testimony this evening. I just, I hope that folks won't get lost in the weeds, I guess, of trying to type in on a form when there may be other avenues, that are readily made for editing documents, such as the track changes function within Microsoft Word. So I hope that the committee will remain amenable to receiving well-formed submissions that make use of a Word document that do show suggested additions, deletions, and then sidebar comments to provide the explanations, such as I see the reasoning on the draft form that's on the website now.
Well, my response would be probably we prefer submissions by the form, but I do understand, like in your case where you did numerous edits, that would be not practical. So it's sort of hard to tell how this is going to turn out because we're sort of going through the process a little bit by feeling our way out. And feeling our way along. So I think we would certainly, to this point, accept the type of document you submitted. But if we were to get a lot of them, it would be impractical. I can tell you, it would not be practical to have that. Like if we were to receive even 10, like you had, it would be too much. It just wouldn't be practical for the committee to review all those. So it's a little bit of a work in progress. But for right now, you can continue to submit the way you did. That make sense?
It does, thank you. I just, again, had hoped that the Word's native combined documents would allow you or the committee to review a compilation of submitted changes all in one document so you can see where those changes have been made. I'm not sure how, perhaps that's part of the internal workings, the committee will take each of the submitted submission forms and how they will then in turn be compiled and then presented for review and discussion, either within the committee or again, a public forum such as this.
Well, we'd probably review things provision by provision, unless you have very general comments. And we would hopefully, and that would be an advantage of using the testimony form because it would be specific to a provision. But like I said, it's a tad up in the air simply because if we get swamped, it may be difficult and we may have to reimagine how we're gonna handle that. And I just don't know at this point. At this point, we're fine because we're not receiving a lot of testimony. But if we get overwhelmed, it may have to change. I just don't know. I'm sorry. Yeah, I know that's not much of an answer, but that's best we have at this point. Unless anyone wants to comment. Okay?
Question, good.
Yeah, Bob, go ahead.
So this form you're going to send out replaces section 22102 format that's required in the current neighborhood plan, how to request a change.
It will not necessarily comply with that. And the reason being is we're doing an overall review of the plan, and we're not going through the process that provision entails. That process would be through, I think, a different process. We're looking at totally reviewing the whole plan. So I don't think that would be applicable in this case.
That's just like the spot check.
Yes, I think
So
those are
doing-
for, I'm sorry,
You're
Bob.
doing the 10-year review.
Yes.
That's
Well,
required
it
in
says it
section-
has to be done. I'm sorry, it says it has to be done within, a 10-year periods, but that's the review that we're doing, yes.
It's a deadline, so you're doing that, but you're not following the procedure in the neighborhood plan. You're coming up with
We're
your own.
not. That would be one way of putting it. What I would say is we're not doing these selective edits. We're doing a whole review. And the changes that will be made to the plan will be wholesale. In other words, it will be one big, at the end of the process, it'll be one, unless there's pushback from the corporate council or mayor or that sort of thing. There's going to be one plan. And then that will supersede the old plan. So we're not going to be going through that particular process. Now, we will be following the amendment process that's required.
I'm sorry,
So-
just use the commission reviewing every line item and a change to the plan and voting on it. So, you're saying it's just going to be one big vote.
Well, it will be by the commission. And at the end, yes, but I think we will be voting on each of the provisions going through the committee. Most likely, unless we combine certain provisions. Yes, we will be doing a provision by provision review.
Okay, that
Okay?
sense, sort of.
Okay.
Whatever.
Thank you. Any last comments on the board outreach plan, or kind of get off topic a little bit? So next up on our agenda is our consideration of geographical boundaries. One of the things I think when we do the outreach, we probably should stress that a little bit more, because people might, I don't know, if they have the eyes glazed over or something, we should make sure that they realize we're actually reviewing that part. With that said, in discussions with the NCO, it is a huge, as we just talked last meeting, it's a huge undertaking to look at any of the boundaries. But first and foremost, as we talked last time, we really do need to get the input from each of the individual boards. So as I suggested, perhaps we could put this off to after we finish with all the, say, substantive provisions, and obviously borders are substantive, but in the sense of the individual provisions, if we put this off to the very end, this will allow plenty of opportunities for the boards to provide feedback regarding any boundary changes. Obviously, we have, I think, a couple instances, but that's it. And then the board, if at that point in time, the committee itself feels like we may go to a board and say, hey, you've got a lot of, your population is significantly increased. Would you think of doing something? We can make that decision at that point. But I think really everything needs to wait until we get significant board input on that particular issue. Is that okay with, yes, Larry?
Yeah, per our last meeting, you had tasked me to take on the geographical, so I already started homework on this. I've already started outreach. All 33 neighborhood boards, I've made a list of who's got what sub-districts. and of course, trying to map out their borders. I haven't done that yet, but with the first phone calls I've made with especially Ernest Cavallo, he is really concerned because of Allah Park. That's a major headache for him. And the problem is that is underneath Kalihi Palama, and they have not really tackled the problems. And his problems are related to Allah. So he's got his recommendations where those border lines should change. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and collect that information, but the board's got to understand what you just said. It is a huge undertaking to make that border change because they're going to have to get a petition and they're going to have to get at least 5% of the vote, of the voters in their district.
Perhaps. If we undertake a major review, well, we are undertaking a review of the plan. And so this plan would, in theory, supersede the old plan, meaning that if we totally rechange the borders, we wouldn't necessarily have to change or go through the procedure that's set up in the old plan. And so I think what you're doing is great. I kind of forgot exactly the task, but I do think, and I hope the committee agrees, that this should come from the board themselves. So any information and contact you can give to them so that they're thinking about it. When we get to that point, maybe next year in the second quarter or something like that, they'll be well aware of it and have an opportunity to opine what they want to do.
Well, my prediction of it is just because I was so involved with the reapportionment initiatives for the last census, out of the 33 neighborhood boards, we'll probably have maybe 5 that are concerned. That's because of all the recent development. So, but I'll keep you all apprised. I'll continue to make the phone calls and then plus have them put that in their inputs to you when you call for it.
Okay, thank you. And if there's anything
Great.
specific you report to the committee, let me know so I can put it on the agenda. And that way. Yes, sir.
I have a
Rich?
question, Patrick. So I understand. So at the end of the neighborhood plan committee process, we've got input from neighborhood boards, from anybody else, the public, for example. And then we're gonna come up with a, as you said, comprehensive plan, which may include what Larry was talking about. Boundary changes can be incorporated into that final comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan, I take it, is what's going to public hearing at the end of this process. So will people have a chance to provide testimony on specific parts, or will it be an all or nothing kind of package?
Well, the way that we talked about and I envision is the committee will, of course, come up with, at the end, with a comprehensive plan. It'll go to the commission.
Right.
Then the commission can decide whether they want to, if they like the whole thing, or, I mean, it won't be an all or nothing for the commission. The commission can say, oh, we like it all, but we don't like these conditions. Go back and do some more.
Yeah, I follow
Yeah.
that.
Okay,
Commission has to approve it goes to the public hearing, so.
yes.
If the commission, for example, approved the comprehensive package plan. So that's what's going to go out to public hearing. So will the question before the public be, how do you feel about the package, or how do you feel about the whole thing, or do you like this, do you like that, or I don't like the boundaries for this board, that board, I want to change this or that in specific portions of what is presented as a comprehensive package. So that's the question. Will people testify on specific parts, or is it an all or nothing kind of package?
Well, my understanding, ultimately, the commission can edit the plan, the proposed plan as they will. So if we have a public hearing and someone says, hey, I don't like this particular provision, or I don't like this boundary drawing, and the commission says, we agree, then we'll change
I
it.
think it goes back to the commission, but prior to that, at the public hearing point, what is the public testifying on? Is it a package, or can they opine on every part of it? That way, if they do, and it goes back to the commission, at that point, the commission can decide whether they want to fix that or change this or that based on the public comment during the public hearings. So that's really the question, what's presented before the public, is it all or nothing?
I have a suggestion.
Supporting the plan, comprehensive plan, or bits and pieces, and they can, testify on anything.
Stephen, wait just a second. So Rob, Dylan, do you want to?
Yeah, I would say that at the end of the day, and granted, this is just based on previous experience that I've seen in the past when this was done, was to be 100% honest, in the past, there was not as much public involvement and board member involvement at even this stage right
Right.
here. It used to be more that, yeah, technically people could come in, board members, members of the public, and talk with the committee while they're doing it. But rarely was that ever actually the case. Most people didn't show up. So the committee would talk, make some changes, then the public notice would go out, and then board members, members of the public, they would then either submit their own changes or say, I think you should revert back, or I disagree with one of the amendments that you are making, you shouldn't change that. But I guess the bottom line is, even though that things have changed a little bit in how this process is taking place by encouraging more input right now, I would say it's not an all or nothing. Anyone who wants to come and submit testimony, they could submit testimony on what the commission puts forward as their ideal draft. They could say, I think you should scrap that entire thing and just go back to the old plan. I think you should just make this
So
one
during,
change.
so during the public hearing process, everything is up for debate
Yeah,
as presented to the public.
yeah.
So if I like this, I don't
Yeah,
like that,
anyone-
this, I'll
even-
add this.
Even during this process right now, anyone who wants to submit testimony, they're just submitting testimony. It doesn't necessarily mean that every single testimony is something that this committee needs to incorporate in the plan. It's listening to the public,
Right.
weighing the options, and then deciding what, the commission thinks is best.
Thank you. Stephen, did you want to add something?
Yeah, that's a good point. Their testimony is not binding. Testimony is consideration of the input from a public person. But I want to speak to the item about the geographical boundaries. Larry, what you're doing is great. You're stirring it up, bringing attention to the fact. But I have a gut feel that if a board wants a geographical boundary change, they should issue us a resolution. And that is our standing. If we don't have standing. We need something to be standing. And the comment about the public input, now that's fine. But we're the commission, but we serve the boards. If the boards say they need a boundary change, that's great. But we should have something in writing to that effect.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that you gotta have a pretty sizable majority, I think, of a board before you start making changes. Anyway,
Any agreement with the other boards where they're moving the boundary.
so Tom, did you want to offer something in here?
Yeah, please.
Could you come up, just so we can hear you in the recording, please?
Right there. Right there, Tom, I can see you too.
Well,
Just project your voice this way.
That makes sense.
Senator, okay, thank you. Tom Heinrich, speaking in my individual capacity. I can certainly offer some things later in much more detail. I think there's some periods of time in terms of how the neighborhood plan has been developed. More recently, I agree with what Dylan summarized, but there are very distinct periods in terms of how the plan got to where it is today. And with considerable down to almost zero input kind of as time went on. But for the moment, I'd like to offer these couple of comments on the geography side of it, if you will. I think it's useful to invite whatever comments. What do you think about your board or your boundaries or whatever as part of the concurrent process, if you will? But it needs to be clear that the way, and what Stephen was just saying, the way the plan and the setup is at this point is based on the community's initiative and the commission being responsive. Okay, so if the commission wants to be suggestive, that's a different thing. Okay, it is very useful though to invite those comments and then to see how boards working together or whatever as kind of an organized effort might be able to make in a collaborative way some of those changes, whether it's Kalidi, Palama, whether it's whatever. Okay, we got a lot of good examples. Having said that, I think what's also very important, however, for this committee and for the commission and the neighborhood commission office is to make very clear that any consideration of geographic boundaries, I'm not talking the plan separate from the boundaries, but any discussion that will be taken up at an appropriate time, because most importantly, you have an election coming up. And
Right.
registration of candidates starts
That's
in
right.
February. And the rest of the administrative tasks that would be necessary to implement any changes to boundaries, et cetera, can't be done, won't be done, and let's not set ourselves up for that failure. Okay. In the bigger picture, the accommodation in the neighborhood plan of the description of the boundaries is taken directly from the origin, which are the initiative petitions. So there's kind of a back and forth there. But by doing that, it incorporates the language of the initiative petition pertinent to the boundaries as part of the administrative rules, that is law, as part of the plan in terms of setting forth that organization. Okay. But let me stop there as for geography. But I think most importantly, we need to be clear at the outset, anything on that is not going to be effective or is contemplated to be effective for the 2025 election cycle. Okay, that's just too many headaches.
I think given our timetable, it will not be an issue.
But I think it needs to be
I
clear.
mean, yeah, okay, well,
You have a number of other folks who've been through the process, et cetera. Let's be clear and set that up as in one of the initial bullet points that we invite comments. That one is not going to be done as part of the initial, phase one, whatever. Thanks.
thank you. Okay, are there any last comments on our geographical boundary issues? So for the moment, what I see is Larry will continue to outreach to the boards. I guess in that presentation, I can just be clear that this won't impact the 2025 election. It's unlikely that we're going to have all these issues resolved by that time anyway. So it's a moot point, but still, just it's better to say it just so people know. And I can see people asking questions, and just keep drumming up, getting the boards to think about it, and let's go from there. And then as to how exactly what we were going to require to actually implement or not implement, to decide to make any changes, we can decide at that later date. Okay, thank you. Okay, so next up we have our actual consideration of the individual provisions. Let me start by saying I did go through Kevin Lye's testimony. I don't know if anyone else had a chance to review it. It just came in sort of recent, but a lot of the first part of a lot of the notes were about formatting issues. I will say formatting is not really a significant concern at this point, or at least unless the committee says otherwise. I think that's something that we can take up at the very end. Indents, grammar, things like that. I mean, that's kind of we can worry about that later. We just really want to tackle the substance of all the provisions. It's not to say it's not important, but we will look at that, but at a later point. So with that said, unless anybody wants to make any general comments before we head into the thick of it, we could proceed. Okay, hearing none, we'll start out, and what the process will be is I'll just read the title. I don't know that we need to read the whole provision, the whole section. If any of the committee members wants to do that, please, we can do it if a committee member so demands. Let me know. But otherwise, we'll just play it by ear, and if it's necessary, we'll do it that way. So first up, we have section 3-1. This is under our new reorganized proposal. Section 3-1-101, and it's short title. I know in some of these, the NCO will have, our NCO reps will have some comments, but so we'll keep going. Are there any comments about that one? Hearing, yes, Tom, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Tom Heinrich. And noting, I'm working off of the draft that you did, so at the bottom it says page 13-27. On this, for the short title, let me make a general comment first. There are tensions in the effort which trying to shuffle the deck, if you will, of the cards of portions of what's currently Chapter 11, the rules and procedures of the Neighborhood Commission, with chapters 12 through 20, which is the neighborhood plan. So one of the first challenges here in what's currently numbered for this discussion is 3-1-101 is that it is going to, mix up those cards here trying to deal with the neighborhood commission compared to the entirety, or at least how this is being set up as the plan. The other thing is stepping away from the language of this section right here. The other thing that has to be kept very strongly in mind is that section 14-101 of the city charter does not establish the neighborhood boards per se. It establishes the neighborhood commission. And the neighborhood commission is then charged with developing what I'll just call the neighborhood plan in order to then administer a neighborhood board system. In that regard, as you're looking at a life cycle of an organization or whatever, the tension that will be continued throughout the discussion is that of what first needs to be dealt with, as is currently set forth in Chapter 11 of Subtitle 2. Not real comfortable with that, but that's the numbering and ordering as provided by the city clerk of the city and county of Honolulu for where the neighborhood commission fits in under the managing director in the scheme of administrative rules. Okay, so in that regard, ultimately, we're going to have to be careful with the language of, are we talking rules and procedures of the commission or of the neighborhood plan, which is then applicable to the board specifically in that sense. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kevin, do you want to offer something?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just briefly summarize the sidebar comments I provided for section 102 definitions. And I think they echo what Mr. Heinrich was saying earlier about just ensuring that the references to external documents will, at the end, we can just tag them. They will be reviewed and make sure they are chip shape, ones that are referring to external documents, as well as those that are internally referenced, such as, I think the language for the term delegate may reference internal documents. And similarly, for the reference for the term plan. And then the last one I had was just at the end of the day, when and before this goes for public review, there may be other terms that we may want to add to this list, this glossary, that will help the naive user, someone who's new to the board or a member of the public, just to clarify terms that are used frequently throughout. We may not know that until we get deeper into the review process. Thank you.
Okay, are you talking about section 102? We were actually just at 101, but that's fine. The other comment I had for you, Kevin, is you talk about city and charter document control authorities. I don't know what they are. I mean, if you have a site for those, I'd love to get it.
Yes, I'm sure Mr. Heinrich probably knows the definitive answer on that, but I retrieved some images.
That's kind of been the dilemma, is we hear a lot about that, but I've never seen the actual citation or the authority. I've heard that that's just kind of the way it's done. So, okay, in any event, we've already made that decision. And if we have to go back and reorganize, then so be it, we will do that. But we can't keep rehashing the same thing. Okay, Greg.
Yeah, I just want to make a brief comment on what Tom Heinrich said, and I really respect his opinions. It sounds like if the deck is shuffled, I think that maybe I'm incorrect, but I think what he was referring to is making changes, substantive changes, and referencing other documents. As you shuffle the deck, you're going to have a big problem. I mean, make it simpler to summarize it that way. But I would like to ask a question. So I went to the Google Shared Drive to see if there was something today. So you're proposing some changes or some, I'm assuming, wording changes, and you had some summary, but I'm not seeing it as a participant to this meeting, and I didn't see it unless it's there in the Google Shared Drive. So if you've got a section that's going to have wording changed or substantive changes, is there a before and after that's already available so that we could see it, or could
This is the first step. We haven't actually made any substantive changes besides the
Okay.
reorganization. So that's
Excellent.
why, yeah, and that's why we don't really have a change log. The change log would just be the reorganization. It would not be any substance. So this is actually our first foray into actually doing that. So, and
Okay,
it will be
excellent.
in the future. Okay, thank you.
Excellent to know that. And sorry, I mean, I picked up on what Tom said too, because my background is in defense electronics too. So working for Raytheon, where we had voluminous manuals of things I had to follow. I know if you change one thing here, it affects other mill standards or specs or things. And I just think he was kind of pointing to, you're going to get into a little bit of trouble if I'm correct. But that's all I wanted to comment on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments on section 101? So as we will move on then to section 102, which is our definition section. I assume, before we get to there, did you want to, okay, Tom, go ahead, please. Tom Heinrich again, please.
Okay,
Just
Tom
go.
Weiger. Thank you, Chair. Real simplistically here. 3-1-102 sets forth those definitions that are used in the subtitle, which is all inclusive for the neighborhood commission. So this is being taken from the current chapter 11. Then back, which is not on your agenda for tonight, but the other definition section, which is part of the neighborhood plan, is set forth in the draft as 1-1-102. This makes reference to current chapters 12 through 20 of this subtitle. And the key here is that these two groupings of definitions, we tried years ago to have a single section of definitions, because then you're just looking at one place. That would have been nice. But the operating factor here is that starting with the commission under the current scheme is you have definitions provided that apply to the entirety of the subtitle. And then when you get into the neighborhood plan, which is more specifically for the neighborhood board system, the boards themselves, then you have additional definitions that are pertinent to some of the processes like elections there that need not or do not affect the commission. So there is this working back and forth that, again, it's a different tension. If there's a way in which we could consolidate that, working with Corp Council later and stuff, great. But again, there's two different sets of definitions because of the breadth of what those two groups apply to. Thanks.
Well, let me ask a question. There again, so how did this process, who go forward when you engaged in it before? Did the Corp Council tell you you could not, one applied to the commission, one applied to the neighborhood boards, one set of the definitions?
Let me kind of go to a higher altitude in quick response to that. I'll use the euphemism "we" for the number of folks that were involved starting in 1997. When we tried and did start the process to completely overhaul, review everything, overhaul the neighborhood plan to get it largely to what you have now compared to what was started in 1973, was that the goal was to have a single volume, for lack of a better word, that simply would be a field guide a simple manual for the neighborhood board system overall. And we set it forth kind of like the life cycle of how things work, whatever. By the time we had to work with Corporation Council, again, this is through the Neighborhood Commission. I was not on the commission at that time. The key then was, all right, this is going to end up being handled by Hawaii Revised Statutes, Chapter 91, okay, Administrative Rules, Procedures Act, and the rulemaking process, such that, and a number of things then got shuffled, so that, like you have now, the first thing you deal with in subtitle 2, I'll just say for shorthand, is the neighborhood commission. And then you deal with what the commission was then to establish, which is the neighborhood plan, the rules for the subordinate boards. Okay. But the initial goal was, how do we make this as simple as possible? So however long this little binder may be, if you're in the field, you've never been downtown to Honolulu Hale or whatever, you've got as many of the answers that you need in regular language in that manual. Once you started getting into the HRS Chapter 91 process, whatever, a number of things started getting important to fit into the required rule-making process. And so while most things are straightforward, part of it is, well, where the hell do I just find this? Because it's over here, whatever. It's not anywhere near what we had intended when we started because of where this was going to end up, which is part of the administrative rules of the city, which have gone through the whole process, is long.
Okay.
It's a
Go ahead.
great question. So when you did this back then, was the mandate from Corp Council is you have to do it this way? You have to include everything that's in there.
That question was not posed, that opportunity was not given to the neighborhood commission committee or to those volunteers that we spent years working on the language and the layout and all the rest of that. What was there was this, and there's a section in the plan that deals with this element, and that is, I'm a board chair, for instance. I wanted to ask a question from Corporation Council because I need an opinion. Well, thank you. As a board chair, you have to guide that question through the executive secretary. You don't go direct. So in that regard, everything that we worked with, it was up to the commission from time to time to ask for guidance or whatever, but understanding that the ultimate influence on a number of factors was Corporation Council. So even some things that neighborhood commission very much wanted to do compared to even us in the community, ultimately Corporation Council had the final say.
Okay, I'm losing it a little bit because I didn't really, to me, and I'm not sure if would said it this way or this is what I'm thinking. The ultimate question is what are we required to do? And I'm hearing you say that we're setting up you set up procedures to do X, Y, and Z. What did Corporation Council tell you you were required to do? And that is, I hear part of it is to follow HRS 91.
Well, short answer,
Okay.
I think it's the easiest and most direct way to answer the question and for this process is your opportunity is to present a proposal. What do you want to say? Okay, what's the policy that you are representing? Period, to answer one. Answer number two then is, all right, however you are now presenting that policy, is it allowable under other law or whatever? But you're having to go through ultimately the HRS Chapter 91 Administrative Procedures Act for the rulemaking. And part of that process is also the administrative rules drafting manual, which then lays out how the administrative rules, once you've got the content, then how the administrative rules are to be numbered, how they're set forth and all the rest of that. So you lay out that policy in certain ways in accordance with the administrative rules format. But first and foremost, at this point, the most important thing is, what do we propose?
Okay, but actually, that's not the most important thing to me. The most important thing to me is, how do we do this correctly? And I'm not really hearing, except for the reference to Title 91 and maybe say the administrative drafting rules, I'm not hearing a lot that really has meat in it that I can go check it out and say, okay, this tells me what I have to do. That's what I'm looking for. And so, yeah, that's where I'm very fuzzy on this. I don't know if Dylan, if you want to.
I guess my question is because like, as we noted, the city charter says there is a commission and they are tasked with coming up with a plan.
Yes.
After that point, I mean, are the administrative rules so detailed that they say that if a commission makes a plan, they must have their definitions in two different sections of that plan?
No, no,
So that's like,
no, it's a matter of when you are working with the structure of the administrative rules, and I'm not talking about a particular rule, but rather step back. What is the organizational chart for the city and county of Honolulu?
let's.
Hang on, let me finish my point. Because from that organizational chart, the city clerk is obligated then to assign space and provide that organization in the three-ring binder, if you will, in that organization of, if you're going to enact, if that agency is qualified to enact administrative rules, this is where they fit, and this is the format that they have to be set for. That's why it comes back to, what's the substance of the policy?
Well, I would ask, do they need to be administrative rules, or do they need to qualify for something called administrative rules? And yeah, I mean, basically that's it. I mean, do they need to rise to that level, or can they be just a set of policies that the commission and the NCO make? Make sense?
I'd love to offer some comments on that. Let me think about it, because right now is not the appropriate time.
Okay.
There are, in my opinion, several, at least two, but several other alternatives by which that opportunity is there. But then you start getting into some difficulties, particularly when you're talking elections, that you really start having other state law apply as it relates to the election process and.
Well,
Yeah,
but it seems like if the policy complies with the law, then even if it's policy versus administrative rules, then it still suffice, but I don't know that'd be a fact.
well, Tom, as you know, the neighborhood boards kind of live in this never, never world. We're half here and half there. The elections office has nothing to do with us. They will not opine on anything that we do. They won't tell me this is a rule you gotta follow. So if that's the case, why are we following election rules? And why are we worried about it? The second part is, we have a situation right now where the Ethics Commission has said they have no jurisdiction over the neighborhood board.
Right.
And the other part to that is, I understand it because the neighborhood board members are not required to fill out any financial disclosure form. Okay, so we live in a place that is sort of legal, sort of not, sort of overseen by what we write in the plan. Like we write, we got to follow the ethics law, but the ethics guy says you don't. It's not their deal. So my question is, going back to your original, what do you want? So if we take all of this and move it to the side and we just build from scratch and say, this is what we want. This is how we see the neighborhood board system, which is what the law reads. Basically, the commission is designed to come up with a plan that creates the structure where the neighborhood boards can exist. If we just build that and not even worry about any other stuff, what happens? why, if we take the plan, that we say, okay, we think this will work, and we just build it, and then, hey, corporate counsel, you want to apply, go ahead. You know, administrative rule, fine, jump in, clerk's office, jump in. But if we design it the way we think it should be, if you guys think it's wrong, you change it, you know, I don't know, I'm just trying to get back to the basics of why we exist. And that is to provide the public with the opportunity to speak with its government at its basic form. And if we can build it around that, I would like us to go back to that as a focus. So if we build that and we just say, hey, listen, the best way is town hall meetings.
Okay,
You know,
so,
anyway, sorry, way past.
well, let me say that we have kind of wrestled with this issue about what we are as a committee required to do. At this point, there's a lack of clarity. So what I would suggest is that the committee does what the committee wants to do. And if at some point, and we'll have to put some more time in it, maybe if we can talk outside the meeting, and we find that we're not taking the right path, then we're required by law to go back and fix that. And yeah, I don't want to spin our wheels, but I do think that at this point, the committee should do what the committee views as the best plan. So to just wrap this up, let me ask one of our committee members, and that is Stephen. Do you want to say something? Thank you, Tom. We appreciate it. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, just a quick comment. You know, we set this out to do a revision to the neighborhood plan to update it because there's been so many comments about the plan over time, and survey may help in that area. I don't think we want to go ahead and take it and replace it. That's a whole different item. That's going to take some city council or legislative other approval. We need standing for what we do. We have the standing to update. That's a yes. And by following the precepts already in the plan, we can move forward like that on safe ground. I would be a little bit hesitant about just replacing, inventing new, because we don't have standing. If we update, yes, that's great. Now, the amount of the updating can be up to the commission in working with the boards, like what Larry is doing as far as geographic work. So I think we're on the right path, but I want to make sure that we stay, how to put it, that we drive in our lane so that we don't run into some other difficulty legally.
Well, the problem is
Thank you.
we don't really have a good definition of what our lane actually is.
Right.
Larry, go ahead.
I just want to say that, you know, I haven't heard any issues with this segment of the plan. And of course, we got history right now with Bob being here. Bob was here 10 years ago, right, Bob? He was there at the beginning.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, if you ask him, how many changes were done during that time? Because I don't think we really have a lot of work in this first segment. It's when we get to the neighborhood boards, that's where a lot of work's done.
Okay, well, we need to get to it. But I would say that, you know, just because things have been done away, you know, a certain way for a while, if it's the right thing, we take our own choice. And we can, and as far as whether to change anything too severely or whatever, as we go through, you'll have, all our committee members will have plenty of opportunities to opine, and I'm sure we'll get the public into. So why don't, if there are any last things, I'm sorry, Greg, we got to really move on to our topics on the agenda. And that is, does anyone have anything to say? Section 102. Yeah, good.
Yeah, so in terms of the NCO, you know, consulting Lloyd and looking at this and Dylan over here. Of course, ultimately, it's committee's decision on what you want to do, but if asking for our input, we would consider just deleting this section 3.1.102. And mainly it's just for kind of just sort of clogging up more pages of the neighborhood plan. And I think there are a lot of things in here. I should preface that we're coming from a place of, at the end of the day, this is about the public and what does the public need to know to be able to get in a room? Oftentimes, these are cafeterias, these are other school facilities, these are meeting rooms like this. What does someone need to know in order to just come and talk to their representatives and city agencies? And so when you have this type of stuff in here that's just really long, just doesn't get to the point of what the public is trying to accomplish. You know, I think everyone knows what a city means. We're talking about Honolulu. I think everyone knows what a mayor is, and that's the mayor of Honolulu. I think, you know, everyone knows what a meeting is. And so when you have all of these different types of definitions, I guess maybe if someone really had something esoteric, that would be one thing. But for the most part, I think these definitions are very self-explanatory and don't serve the purpose that we think would necessarily be beneficial for the public if they're just trying to have different.
But if you delete them, how would they be self-explanatory?
Someone doesn't know what a meeting is.
No, that's not what I asked, what I said. How will people know what it is? It's not defined. For example, in elections, we've come across this in the past. What is resident? This spells it out.
I think there's another section of the plan that describes the requirements for being a
Right.
resident.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, it's actually in there. Like if you're military.
So all of these are redundant.
Well, I think it's easy,
They're either redundant or common sense.
right?
Yeah, but we know that not everybody has comments. And if you spell it out for people, you know, this makes sense to me. Yeah, really, because I say
think
common
this is-
sense, and some people just don't.
Yeah,
know
I think-
what that means.
And I'm just saying, the committee can do, the committee and the commission can do what they want. We're just looking at it as red tape.
Yeah, we just look at it, so we don't,
Yeah, simplify the plan.
It's one page, you don't have to mail out, right?
So for example, Dylan, not everybody knows what the executive.
Not everyone speaks English, like.
Well,
you know,
no, executive secretaries.
We have a lot, it's a very diverse community, you know, with a lot of different people, you know.
yeah, I just think there are times when it's first and executive, if it's used in the rest of the plan, you can just say the executive secretary of the neighborhood commission. Mayor of the city of County of Honolulu. I mean, you don't need to explain what can be explained in that sentence that you're using. So, I mean, I don't think anyone would ever not understand what meeting is. And again, it's just, we just wanted to just get rid of things that we don't critical to this stuff.
Okay, so I think when we go through the future provisions, I'll ask for the public input first. And unfortunately, I didn't do that, so in this case, so I will go back. So Sarah, I saw your hand up if you'd like to say something. Say your name, please.
Hi, Sarah Worth. I'm speaking as myself. All right, I wasn't going to speak on camera because I haven't showered or anything else. Sorry, Jeff. But I do have to say, I agree with common sense. Like, you know, intelligent. And some of the things that you know, you had to explain to me. But for example, meeting, when it says that it has to have a quorum, a lot of people would know they have to have a quorum to actually a meeting. You know, so because they would think like, hi, we went to coffee with Larry, we met. So I think the definition meeting is more fluid. And I have to say, one thing I did mark on this list, because it reminds me of my dad. Whenever I asked him like how to spell something, he's like, look it up in the dictionary. Or, you know, so for example, here, the executive secretary means the executive secretary of the commission to be appointed, you know, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, what is the executive secretary? It still doesn't tell me. Like a better definition would be administrator of the NCO, something to clarify. But having the term that you're trying to define be the definition within that, yeah, that's one thing I would change. But
Thank you. Greg, go ahead.
Thank
Greg?
you. Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. Just takes a second to unmute and put the video on, excuse me. Yeah, I was going to make a comment a moment ago regarding the sections and what you were discussing, and I just put a comment in the chat. So I'm concerned with Executive Secretary Yananaka, what he said a moment ago about the direction for, you know, what we can do and change everything on the plan and this and that. And, you know,
Okay.
What planet am I on?
a little
So
out
I'm
of
just
scope.
concerned with
We're
that.
Okay, yeah, and
So-
we've actually we've talked about that quite a bit. We're gonna
I
revisit
get that. And I want to continue on with,
very brief.
I support, that's fine. I support with, member Worth just said, Sarah Worth. And I do also support with Commissioner Melendez said earlier. But what I'm seeing right now is something that I'm a little bit, concerned about as far as the path that this is taking. And hopefully you guys get to the sections that need to be addressed, and the public and, the board's membership has the input to what is really ultimately going to be changed and amended. So that's all I want to see. And I'm just sitting here kind of a little bit stunned tonight. So thank you. Appreciate a moment to speak again. I think I was not given that moment a little while ago. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dylan.
Yeah, if I can just respond to Sarah. I think, for example, use the definition meeting, and it does say a meeting is a duly noticed convening of the commission or board at which a quorum is present. I think we're of the perspective of, like, for example, if your board met and there wasn't a quorum, our office wouldn't pack our bags and go, well, you can't have a meeting because you don't have a quorum at your board. So, I mean, your board would still meet and there could be information shared and people could still talk. Your board couldn't do anything. So, well, so what I mean is, how useful is that term meeting when it's not like anyone would shut it down anyway?
Sorry, it's not really interactive.
Yeah, but
Okay.
that's just.
Thank you. Well, I don't know if Stephen or Larry has weighed in. There are our last two committee members. So do you guys have a thought on this, or?
I think it should be reviewed by the time we get into the plan, because there might be something in there for definitions that we need to explain. Particular item, because I can't think of anything on top of my head. I do agree that some of this stuff is common sense kind of things. But the other thing is, if you take a look at most of the way the city operates, their documents, there's always a definition in there.
Well, okay. I mean,
That's just my.
yeah, I mean, the thought, the kind of we talked about having goals, and one of the goals is simplifying the document, making it less maybe legalistic and easier for someone to pick up and actually find. And you can look up, like, if you have a question about what does quorum mean, you can look it up, you don't need, I don't know that has to be all self-contained, but anyway, Stephen, go ahead, please.
My comment is that we're doing a revision. If the items that are there doesn't hurt, I'd say leave it alone. If you want to add to, fine, because what we've been hearing from the boards is they want more definition, not less. And then my last comment is I was able to find the Hawaii Administrative Rules Drafting Manual, and I emailed it to everyone.
Thank you. Well, what I'm hearing is sort of a split. So I guess at the end, we got to have a vote about whether to keep it or, I mean, we can go back to it, but right now we sort of, if we're reviewing every section, we sort of need to make a call. So I guess if you want to keep it, say yay. If you want to delete it, say no. So all those who'd like to keep it, say yes.
Yes.
Okay. All those that would like to delete it, say no.
No.
No. 3. Okay, I have 3 to 4, or 3 to 1. Sorry, Steve. Okay, so for right now, and this is all, tentative, we can circle back if it's a big issue. Okay, so we're making progress little by little.
102.
What Larry's
Yeah,
comment, if I may say, Patrick,
I'm sorry.
Larry-
What's the-
what Larry's comment was very important though. He said at the beginning of documents, for the heck of it, there's always a definition section. I've written a lot of manuals and documents and how-to things. And so that's just a given, so that someone doesn't have to run around and say, what does this mean? Where does that mean? They have it right in front of them. But whatever you all decide is fine. We can revisit that. I would suggest even tabling this discussion for now. Leave it
Well-
alone. Come back to
Well,
it
I
later.
appreciate that, but we actually did have a vote, and we voted to delete that at this time. So, and what I would suggest is we can keep that as we won't necessarily just delete that whole provision until the very end, then we can renumber everything, but we're keeping it blank. And if we want to go back and put it in at a future date, then before it actually, the final package goes to the commission, we can do that. Okay. So moving on, our next section is 3-1-103, to obtain information. Kevin, yeah, I'll take some public testimony, any thoughts you have. So Kevin, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, if the committee would like to take the opportunity to kind of reflect on today's world and modern technology, and perhaps there's an opportunity to incorporate or better incorporate the online presence of documents and accessibility. I think that's the gist of the 5 sidebar comments I had spaced out throughout this subchapter section. Really, if we can just reflect on the way things work now, if this language needs to let the public know how best to access the information. Is there a charge if there's a lookup of electronic information? Will everything be made available online on the website in a timely fashion? And what if it's archived or goes back prior to years that are available online? Whose responsibility is it to place those archive files online so the public would not then need to be charged a fee to access that which should be there in the first place? Thank you.
Thank you. Dylan, did you get all that?
So from our perspective, if you're asking us, we think this is a redundant section that doesn't need to be here. It essentially, anything that would be required as record to be kept is already spelled out in the state sunshine law anyway. So posting on our website, having things publicly available, keeping things at our office as a record, records requests, anyone can ask anything from our office at any time. Also, there are just things in there that, we don't even do anyway. Anyone can ask our office for a copy of something. We never charged anyone for it. We don't do that. Kevin, you can ask us for any set of agendas or minutes you want. We're not going to charge you a fee for it. So we don't really know why this is in here. I think there's a reasonable expectation that if anyone wants anything from our office, we just turn it over. And so it's not like that type of information we can't get to them, nor do we try to figure it. And then, like I said, the stuff that is mandated, such as keeping things on our website or at least in a centralized location where our office is already spelled out in sunshine law anyway.
Okay, all right, Tom, please.
Thank you, Chair. Tom Heinrich. To keep this short, the consistent reference that Dylan just made to other places in state law, that's part of what we were trying to get away from. Was if you were in a board meeting or whatever, you've got the direction and you can provide those answers very quickly. One of the frustrations with the plan as it is now and with Corporation Counsel was, please take a look at the notes at the end of every section. They are wholly unuseful because what is consistent is the reference to the 2 places in Article 14 of the charter that gives the commission the authority to make the plan. It does not include what was provided for every section that was offered. Exactly what is the governing authority? This comes from HRS Chapter 92. When you have certain administrative processes or agencies or whatever, the public needs to have in those rules this type of section. So there's these other types of overlays. The other general comment to this and everything else is this, like the definitions and stuff. All of us are probably not going to be part of this discussion in 4, 5, 6 years, whatever. The thing with rules and written statements of policy is the collective experience. And that's why if we want to do a simplification, what I suggest is where this all may end up is you have a set of formal rules, which you have now, which are always subject to amendment. And in fact, a translation, if you will, if I want to pick up a 11 by 14, trifold on something, and that's more than enough to go on in so many other ways. and then anybody to their level of curiosity can add the water back in. That may be a lot of what I feel is the frustration and the tension, because this is, no matter how you slice it, a long document. But the majority of questions that come up in open meeting, pretty few. And we just had a big battle in Makiki recently in terms of what's a quorum? That had more than enough votes to pass, no, but it still didn't have the required quorum because it needs something different. So the real key on some of this is, again, a collection, or excuse me, a compilation of the collective experience that we have forward. Okay, so, thanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Were you for or against it? Or good or bad?
I would recommend keeping in this -103 because it sets forth very directly what the expectation is. It does need to be revised to take much more into consideration things that were referenced, Google Docs, I mean, whatever. It needs to be updated.
And anybody?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's the, one of the challenges we have as an office is the document doesn't keep up with the changing times. And then we have situations where we are actually operating and it does not acknowledge the change in the law. And I think that's part of our, challenge at times. Half the document should say, see the law, see the law, see the law. Right now, just until, I think one of the ones was the voting, you can't vote a certain way, but with the advent of our WebEx meetings and our virtual meetings, it has changed. And actually, according to this, that's not allowed, but we use it because that's the law. And I think maybe our challenge at times is we have things in there that we should just reference by saying the law, just follow the law. Because the law changes and we're just behind the curve.
To clarify what Lloyd is referencing, currently in our plan, it allows for 4 different voting methods for the neighborhood boards.
Right.
OIP changed and they said if you have a hybrid meeting, there's only 2 ways allowed, unanimous consent or roll call. So every single board currently in our plan, for the most part, is doing it incorrectly. And we're trying to get that word out, but essentially our plan just on itself is out of date because Sunshine Law changed. And so we're constantly dealing that battle with every single time we just kind of copy something over from another law and put it in here. As soon as that law changes or something like that, our plan is now out of date. So I don't know if there would be a better way of just saying, go see whatever you're looking for over there. But that's the struggle we're dealing with is, do we do that? Or do we keep stuff in here that as soon as the law changes, it's out of date anyway? I don't know.
So what we have is a recommendation from the Neighborhood Commission Office to, I think, delete this whole provision.
I don't want to say it's our recommendation, they're just throwing it out there.
Okay, okay, I maybe step back. That was a little overreach. They just want to put that in discussion. How about that? Sorry. Steven, do you want to add something?
Yeah, that tends to be updated. And I just went through the section we just deleted, and there's also very pertinent laws in there. So I don't recommend anything that's citing a law. We shouldn't delete that. Updating, yes, that's our job. The document, neighborhood plan is a document of the commission, not the NCO. NCO's input is good because they want to make sure it's streamlined, which is fine, but they're not tasked to update it. We are. So we need to keep, I would suggest we keep that in perspective. There's been a lot of good work done on the plan. And in the definitions, a lot more needs to be put in there with the changing times, like we talked about. Like what is a Google Drive? What is this? What is that? Those are part of definitions which actually should be in there now because we're in that time frame. So update is yes. Thank you.
Okay, I didn't mean to suggest that the NCO is making the calls, but I think they have very important insight into the running and the circumstances of the neighborhood boards And I just think, you know, they're an important resource. But in any event, Richard, please.
For something like this, neighborhood plan, I think you could always run into the problem when you're not keeping up with changes in law. So maybe can you have disclaimer for all the provisions saying that if any of the plan provisions are in conflict with state federal law, find the right language for that and say that the law will prevent.
I mean, I think that that's currently in here, that
So why doesn't that take care of any changes?
because what ends up happening is that even though it says that, that's so niche and confusing, people have to go diving for that anyway, but if you just see what's on the surface, hey, the plan says this, then that's what people are basing it off of. They're not going, oh, this is actually out of date. Let me go look up that other law anyway to see how it changed, and that's why people don't know about these
Take it
changes.
out. You're gonna have to look at the law anyway.
Well, no, well, but yes, but even
that's
right,
what
but
Lloyd
even,
was saying that
no, I
you
know,
have to
but even
refer
right now-
to the law, so you have that kind of disclaimer. Maybe it may be something we don't change.
I guess what I'm saying is
Changed
right-
by the.
I guess what I'm saying is right now they have to do that anyway, because if you were to look at our plan right now, it says you can vote these 4 different ways. That's wrong if you're doing the hybrid meeting. So you would have to go look at the law anyway and see that that's changed.
So are we in compliance with the law now? We've
The
been
plan
advised
is,
to do it.
the plan is currently not. in
So
compliance
not the
with
plan, but our practice.
the law. Then
Well,
Maybe.
some,
Why
Depends
for
on
the
which
age? So how do we control it? How do you
you can't,
enforce the law if our plan is in conflict with whatever change in
that's,
the law?
that's the struggle.
That's
So
the
it's
struggle.
always gonna be a struggle.
That's the struggle because we are in a position where we cannot give you legal advice. And that we've been told that a number of times. And at the end of the day, it is your meeting. We can say, we believe you should do this. But at the end of the day, if the people at the meeting say, no, we're gonna do this, then, okay. So it's, again, we live in a never, half in, half out world too sometimes, so.
okay, so Greg, I'll call on you. Please make it specific or germane to section 103. Go ahead.
So it is germane to section 103. The concern with removing this section, a very important section which guides the public and guides our board as to what's available for public dissemination. To me, I'm just kind of shocked that you would even think to remove a section like this. But to just say, you know, that, and I've heard it a couple times now, that remove this, or that, you know, they go to the state or they go here. That's really not how it works. This is an administrative function. If you have changes or updates to this section, which the section does require some updates, these updates should be coming as needed. We don't wait 2 years to update something that might be a legal requirement or a guide or something of that nature. So again, some of the things I'm hearing, and I'm going to stop right now, but some of the things I'm hearing tonight are kind of shocking, and I'm just in amazement. So I'll stop there and wait for the next shocking thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Best show in town? No, I'm not sure. But anyway, do we have any other comments from our committee members? So I didn't hear really any strong desire to remove this. Is there? Does someone want to make that proposal? Any of the committee members? Oh.
Just to clarify real quick, I mean, were there any, I don't know if there were any changes that could be maybe pointed to in the correct direction if this were to stay, what needs to be actually modified?
Well, I think in light of the fact that maybe the NCO wasn't expecting this to be retained, maybe we could say we could table this particular section and then wordsmith it a little bit going forward. Would that be sufficient? Or you might do that?
Ask the committee to consider getting rid of facts and sheets.
Okay. Is there a desire to get rid of fax machines? So before we actually get to that, I will, Bob, you can say something, please.
Just a suggestion. Every time we tried to revise the plan, we tried to stay away from referring to specific laws. Instead, we thought we would publish stuff that's specific in the neighborhood guide. That way, that can be updated at any time when a law changes, and it's a quick reference to our board members. So you might want to consider making wording in there like that. I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you. At the moment, what I hear the desire of the committee is to maybe table this. Oh, we do have the suggestion that we just delete fax machines or faxes. Is the committee okay with that? Are there any objections? Oh, go ahead.
So Chair, I did just want to note, as we're talking about like 103E, any person that requests to receive a meeting notice, all of these are listed on the agenda, and that's also listed out in sunshine law. These are obligations. And every agenda tells the public how to provide testimony, how to get involved. If they have questions, they can contact the neighborhood commission office. There is guidance on every single public notice, and that's why I think our office felt that this was additional space in a plan that seems to be maybe an obstacle for the general public to get involved in these board meetings. At the end of the day, the purpose of this plan and the board is to increase and ensure effective citizen participation from your neighbors, your friends, your family. So that's just our point.
Okay. Stephen, did you want to comment?
Just on section 103 that I would move to have it updated. It does need to be updated, but retain it.
Okay. Well, I think what we're doing is we're table it. I think that's probably what you're saying, and then that way we can do a little bit more thought about it, exactly how to update it. Is that okay, Stephen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. But just to go back and make very clear, is the committee, we will remove fax machine technology unless there's any objection. Okay, thank you. And so I guess next month we're circle back and reconsider this with additional edits. Okay, so moving on. And what is our time frame? Excuse me, I have an administrative question. When is the time frame for the meeting? I mean, do we
I would
just keep going?
3 hours is over lots.
Okay, so we can keep going about that.
Yeah, I would say now.
It's dangerous with back.
Yeah, they haven't.
I'm thinking 2 hours.
Yeah, I think that's probably appropriate. Okay, so let me know when we get to, if we get a good stopping point. Okay, so next up, we will go to section 104, which is another big one, declaratory rulings by the commission. And Kevin, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Thank you,
Kevin,
Chair. If I could direct the committee members to subsection D, one of the edits that I had suggested adding when a commission refuses to issue a declaratory ruling is to cite the specific reason for such, so that it doesn't appear as just, we're not going to make a ruling, or
Right.
so that there's some explanation of that. Relatedly, I think there are some questions again, and more for just hopefully discussion that the committee can entertain. Such as in subsection E, when I believe the terminal clause there is where necessary or desirable, referencing the commission may also request the assistance of other agencies. Well, is that only if the commission feels that another agency might be applicable or of help, or might a member of the public who's involved or making a request for a declaration, maybe they could make a suggestion that should be duly considered by the commission. With subsection F, there is at least one petition submitted to the commission on the 3rd of March, 2023, that my understanding is still outstanding. So my point here is for relative words such as promptly. I think that the document as a whole could be cleaned up by better defining those relative types of terms. This is especially key, not for today, but when we talk about the complaint process, there are gaps in the complaint process timeline that could be mitigated by better defining terms such as before, after, and by when. And then I think from subsection G, my question there was, if different fact situations do become available, may a petitioner resubmit what is essentially the same petition in the hope to get a ruling by the commission. And I think these are the things that I hope that the committee will consider. They're all detailed in the sidebar comments within the PDF file that was submitted as testimony. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kevin, and I can respond to each of these. Okay, so you had the formatting issue. We've kind of talked about that. As far as the section D, I'm not sure why this is renumbered, but I have D3 that may adversely affect the interests of the city commission and the boards. They can, the commission, I guess, can decline to issue a declaratory judgment. I mean, the committee, I mean, the city, this is really a city venture that supports the boards. So there are other avenues for individual board members to assert any issues that they have, be it for management versus, criminal behavior or whatever. There are additional avenues that people can go through. So I don't think it's necessary to require the commission to adjudicate or issue a declaratory ruling if they desire not to. Next, for section E, I think it's pretty clear that the whole provision, section E, is talking about the commission. So the where necessary or desirable, it's the commission. That's how I read it, is just very straightforward. It would apply to the commission. As far as section F, I see what you. Section F shall be promptly informed. Well, sometimes being vague is not necessarily a bad thing because it's sometimes hard to put in deadlines and, say like within 15 days and things like that. So I don't know. I would be comfortable with leaving it a little vague and just saying promptly, because then it can be situation dependent. And I know that doesn't provide as much guidance as perhaps some people would like, but that would be my response. And then as far as G goes, where you say, when would there be additional consideration where there are additional facts not considered by in the order or additional facts present themselves? That's actually a good question, but that can get very messy in defining that because, and a lot of times administrative law is not clear on those type of issues because, then it could go to court and the court has different standards, of reasonableness. Would it make a decision? Would it make a difference in a reasonable commissioner's perspective, or would they have made a reasonable, or I'm sorry, a different decision if those facts existed? Those type of things. So it's that gets really difficult, I think, for the plan to define. And so that's why I would say it's probably not in there. But that actually is a very good question. It's a very interesting point. Anyway, that's kind of my going through.
Chair, thank you.
My response.
If you could address subsection D, the request to insert that the commission would provide a reason for refusing to issue a ruling. That at least would help the petitioner in some fashion, a better understanding, and might actually decrease the amount of correspondence as follow-up.
In my view, that's not an unreasonable request. I don't know what the other committee members are thinking. At the end of the day, it could be something very general. I think maybe you should, have something, even if we were to say, or we being the commission, I'm sorry, were to say, we don't want to take a stance at this time. That's still
Right.
Kind of issuing a response to a declaratory judgment. I'm sorry, Larry, did you want to add?
I just want to say that I think that the commission needs to go on record and provide the reason. If somebody's going to go back and investigate situations, what was the reason why it was refused?
Okay.
Right.
Stephen? Okay, so you agree?
Agreed.
I think we could, let's, I think that's very reasonable, and that's a good point. So why don't, I mean, everybody's in agreement in spirit, so we just need to have the language. So why don't, I can take that and we can talk about the exact language at the next meeting. We'll just circle back. But I think given what everybody stated, it'll be basically, yeah, we will provide at least a reason, either provided this declaratory judgment or a reason that we won't do it. Okay? Okay, well, then that's, I'm sorry, there was a lot of other stuff. Any other points in that? I mean, thank you, Kevin. That was actually some good points. But did any of the other committee members have any responses to any of the other provisions?
How do you respond now? You provide a reason or with a rejection? If they, you know, something is rejected.
I mean, like,
He's
declaratory take up.
Yeah.
If we don't take up, there's a complaint. Or
a petition if you reject it.
Well, here it's may for good cause refuse to issue a declaratory judgment. What I would think is, I hope the committee, you know, I have the intention of the committee right, and that is if the commission did refuse to issue, then we would state a reason as to why we. So it's not directing the commission to actually issue a declaratory judgment. It's just, it's directing the commission to provide some information.
Actually, the reasons are provided, right, 1 through 4. Those are different reasons we cite for rejections. I would think you just select the applicable one.
Well, I guess you could say, reading this, well, it says may cite. So I don't.
maybe that is something that this needs to be reworked.
Yeah. May.
Have you ever acted in such a position? Yeah, but not so much a
Can it,
request.
Kevin, can I go back and can you explain exactly what the issue is here for you on section D?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think that if I was to receive a response to the petition that I submitted on the 3rd of March, 2023, and it simply said the commission is refusing to issue a declaratory ruling, I would kind of want to know why. So it would help me know to where I would want or need to appeal this process and to know what the thinking of the board was. Perhaps there was something that could have been better submitted or a simple clarification could help. But if the public is left in the dark, it really gives this huge draconian
That's true.
sense that we're getting from the operations. And that was the gist of it, Chair.
Okay, so just to kind of, you know, get this whole provision, the subsection into, make it clear, if you were provided with one of the, you know, the subsections, the 1 through 4, if they said, okay, well, it may adversely affect the interests of the commission or the boards, would you want a statement as to why? Are you suggesting that the commission should say why they believe that might adversely affect? Or to be, you know, to be more clear is what I'm saying. Is that what you're asking?
Not necessarily. I think the obligation would be just to cite one or more of the 4 subsections under subpart D. I think that's the way it would read now. I don't think we can ask more of that at this point.
I think that's, I mean, I read it that that's what the commission's supposed to do. I just think maybe it hasn't followed the plan, but the way I read it is that's exactly what they're supposed to do. So maybe there was a failure before. And it is just a failure to actually follow what's in here. So I'm not seeing as how we even actually have to change it. We just need to make sure the commission is doing what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, do you see anything that specifically needs to be changed, I guess is what I'm asking.
Chair, I guess I don't see a specific requirement that the commission cites a reason. It just says that they may refuse.
Well, it says, but it said the specific reasons for not issuing it. So there's a set of the four, so they're supposed to, and maybe they haven't in the past, but according to here, they're supposed to tell you which of these four
May I ask
reasons.
where you're, I'm sorry, Chair, may I ask what language are you seeing that says that?
It says, where it's underlined, so they can refuse and cite the specific reason for such refusal.
Chair,
And I'm
that is my submission for an amendment to the language.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I did not see that. I thought that was the original language.
That's
Okay,
underlined as all inserts into a changes track document. That's how we know what's new. Thank you,
okay.
Chair.
So, now I see. Sorry about the misunderstanding. Give me just 1 second. I mean, that seems very reasonable. Does everybody agree Stephen? I mean, you're the only person not here.
Yeah.
Motion. I don't think we need, because we're a committee and we don't really need to follow the Robert's rules as much as long as the general consensus is everybody's okay with that. Okay, so we're citing that specific language. Thank you, Kevin. I think that's very reasonable and we're do that. Are there any other provisions in section 104 that the committee would like to address? Stephen?
Just a quick question for Lloyd. Lloyd, I don't know if this was before your time, but we used to always have a corporate counsel person with us. We had a lawyer sitting with us. Always did. Can you ask corporate counsel to come with us? Actually be at our commission meetings, including this meeting would be really good. I don't think we need it for Survey, but for the commission and for the planning committee, that would be a good idea. Do you think you can request that?
If I can request.
Okay, yeah, that would
Thank
be
you.
very helpful. If
That'd be
they can
great.
do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so with that said, are there any other issues with section 104 that anyone wants to bring up? Okay, so we'll go on, and I think this will probably be the last section that we may get to this evening, and that is the 3-1, 1-1, I'm sorry, 105, you have severability. Usually in a legalistic, I mean, I can say it, usually in legalistic documents, these are actually found all the time, and it's
normal.
yeah, I mean, for the people who don't know, it's just saying if one section is stricken, then the whole document doesn't collapse on its own and other provisions are enforceable. In this case, and it really is going to turn, well, I should say in this case, in this situation with the plan, it's really going to turn into if these are actually like administrative law, then this might be important. But if we go with maybe this is not considered administrative law and we're deleting provisions that we don't really think need to be in there, this really serves no purpose. I mean, quite honestly, any provision that is thrown out can be changed through a process with the commission. In theory, could it leave the boards in limbo a little bit? Yeah. I just think it's a practicality if you really want to simplify the plan. Just anyway, Lloyd, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I was just reading this, it basically says, or its application of a person or circumstance is held invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction. So they're already in court, and court is going to decide a lot of things.
Well, but there again, it provides that if they do invalidate one provision, then the whole plan isn't invalidated. And so these type of clauses do serve a very important purposes in a lot of documents. I just question about the importance in this particular situation.
Right, yeah, I agree. I don't see this as a must-have.
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, Steve, I'll get to you in just 1 second. At the end of the day, it seems like, we're trying, and now whether it's going to be successful or not is to get away from this being a legalistic document as more of a policy document. And, the policy of the commission, the policy of the NCO, whether that withstands legal review, that's a different question. But if we do, as say yes, Tom suggested, and we go with our vision of the plan, then our vision of the plan would be to make it more simple. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, my comment, I have a severability clause in all my contracts I do with the state. Not necessarily put in there court of competent jurisdiction. That's the old fashioned way of saying, but that's not necessary. The other comment I have is that the references here to law, RCH, et cetera, and the previous section, someone should go through and verify, and it's going to be painstaking, that those are still valid. Because like Lloyd mentioned also, they change. And whenever I do contracts, I verify what the legislature does. I verify what SPO does. And it's a pain, but you know you have a valid document. So I would suggest that someone go through and verify the laws that are stated, that they're still valid, or maybe they have been updated, so it's been revised. And if you want to go ahead and revise out court of competent jurisdiction, that's okay. That's just an old way of saying it. But servability is in every document. It just protects the document itself because things change. If someone decides that a couple words are misspelled, well, then that's fine. It doesn't invalidate the rest of the document.
Well, they're important in legal documents. That's just like contracts and such. That's kind of the whole point, is to get away from this being a legal document. And like I said, I don't know whether we can do that at the end of the day, but that's the goal. So that's why I'm suggesting it's not necessary in this situation.
But it is a legal document. It's a ruling document. This is a governance document. It's a big deal.
My question, if we were to consider the neighborhood plan policy, then right now it's structured like a legal document. If all references to statute, if we took all of that out and just wrote it in plain English, then maybe it becomes a policy document more so than legal document.
Well, and that's why we're unclear with whether we're required to make it a formal legal document.
Well, maybe that's something we should.
It is.
Well,
Well,
they are.
then like starting over, make it turn it into a policy document. But it bring it is. Sometimes that's good.
Yeah, it's very unclear. Just a moment. So Kevin, if you want to offer something, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, I believe that the only suggestion I had for this section was to consider switching from jurisdiction to authority. I'll completely defer to the lawyers in the room, but my understanding was that authority might deal more with administrative and procedural competencies versus jurisdiction, just about the power to hear and decide cases. And secondly, this is a legal document. I mean, there are parts of the neighborhood plan that, if violated, can earn someone a misdemeanor. So I think that it is important that we retain that. So if this section gets retained, I just want to make sure it's okay.
Can you enlighten me as to which section you're referring to that might create a circumstance for a misdemeanor?
Intentional violation of the Sunshine Law is punishable by up to a misdemeanor.
But that's a violation of the Sunshine Law, not a violation of the plan. Okay, I
True.
mean, just to be clear. And well, that's an important distinction. I mean, seriously, and that's why, that's the whole point, that a lot of these issues go back to, say this is a law, whether this rises to the fact that this is, and if it is administrative rules, then yeah, it very well may rise to have the practical enforceability of law. But if not, then a lot of these are referring to laws. And yes, if you violate the other laws, then that's an issue, but you're not going to be cited for violating the neighborhood plan. To the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware of a situation. Can't say that blanket, but I'm pretty sure.
Patrick,
Stephen, go ahead. Yeah.
last comment on this subject is going back to the beginning of the document. Rules and procedures of the neighborhood commission. This is a governing document. By definition, it's legal. It's a governing document. Now we can say it's a legal document in this context or that context. But if we went to Tommy Waters and said, is this a legal document? He'd say, yeah, it's
Yes,
it's a governing document.
That's not clear, because every memo written by a supervisor, is that law? I mean, it kind of gets murky. So that's not clear. I don't,
I can ask him tomorrow, give you clarification.
be,
I'll
I
email him
would be
tonight.
happy with that. That would be fine. Tom, do you want to
Thank you.
offer, if you have a historical perspective?
But just a very quick comment, Tom Heinrich, and that's, you know, I hear what you're struggling with in terms of policy versus law or governing document or whatever. What you're looking at now is law. It was properly adopted, signed by the mayor through the Administrative Procedures Act, rulemaking process, et cetera. So it is an expression of policy, but this is law. It's not referred to as an ordinance, it's referred to as city administrative law, but it went through that proper process so that when you look at the pyramid, if you will, of the Constitution or charter at the top, then the statutes or ordinances, then administrative law, went through the appropriate process, so it is law. If you want to do something different, as a number of people have said tonight, then it's a matter of considering what do you need to express as a neighborhood plan, as a set of rules, as compared to some other expression of policy. And especially one good comment that came out earlier was, again, for certain things that can be said as guideline or whatever, that can be changed on very short notice because it is not law. It is policy of the NCO or whatever. That's stuff that can be updated promptly. But if it's in the administrative rules, got to go through the rulemaking process to amend.
But that's the whole point. Does it have to be in the administrative rules?
I'll hold off on that because that.
Well, I
that's
mean,
part of
that's all part of this question of, okay, I'm not saying that the neighborhood plan is not law, but I'm saying, does it have to be? And where's the requirement? And okay, well, we could have that discussion, but anyway, that's part of it is.
But just to be clear, what you got now is the law. Because
What we have now is we have a working document that we suggest to replace. So we're working, yeah, I mean, we have a very simple model that's based upon, and you can say it's law, I won't debate that, but that's the whole question. So we're asking, is it going to does it require the enforcement of law to trigger all these issues?
One quick response
Yes.
from a lot of things in the last half hour. Whatever is superior to the administrative rules, state law, whatever, okay, you are always going to look to the superior law. But part of the factor then is what does the commission choose to apply if it's not otherwise clear? Because one of those other tensions, as was just said, is neighborhood boards kind of in between. Ethics doesn't want them, OIP doesn't want them, you know, this kind of stuff. And yet, the requirements that are placed on the members in many cases, places a legal burden or duty for the board members to consider certain things, not make decision. Okay, and then my quick reference is simply, and Lloyd, this is one question that I was never able to get answered by co-counsel, and that is, how many references, how many sites are there currently, this is years later, currently in the ordinances that require applicants or whatever to come before the neighborhood boards? In other words, the city itself has placed other burdens on board members that are not expressed in the plan. And yet there are other liabilities that address. So there's a whole different tension. So as to 105, my recommendation is you keep it in. As Stephen has said, this is one element. It needs to be reviewed for modern language, but the bottom line is it's very good boilerplate for a reason.
Well, I think a lot's going to turn on this inquiry into, you know, is this going to be a legal document or not? And so why don't I suggest that we put this off until we get more information and we'll go forward, because it still seems very unclear. I can see how this can be, but what I'm hearing, I don't know about legal mandates for board members and But anyway, we're doing some more research into that. Why don't I suggest that we adjourn, unless someone wants to make any last thoughts? Do we have any committee members that would like to offer anything at this time? If not, we'll look back at, I recall, I was gonna suggest that we review some other material, but really at the rate that we're going, it's probably better just to finish out what we have. So we will go back and we'll look at the language. I think it was 103, 104, and 105, and the inclusion of the severability, which is 105. And then we will continue through 203, I think, of the next
Right.
subsection. Okay? So with that, do I hear a motion to adjourn? Do I hear a second? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everybody.
It was a big old vote.